What's going on, everybody? Doug here, and I just got done seeing The Smashing Machine. I know I'm super late to this movie as well, but I want to see before left theaters or local theaters near me this weekend. I was very intrigued by this movie because of three things: Dwayne Johnson doing a more dramatic role, Emily Blunt, and Benny Safdie. I've been a big fan of Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock, for a long time. A big part of my childhood from a lot of his movies, and of course, being a massive fan of Fast and Furious. I love when actors and filmmakers and genre and different artists and creatives kind of like take risks and kind of try new things, going from different genre or actor turned filmmaker or vice versa, whatever. So I wanted to see what The Rock could do, like Dwayne Johnson could do, was more of a serious dramatic role. So I think his last movie that he was kind of challenged in as a performer, I would say, was probably Pain and Gain. And I love that movie. I love that performance. My thought Dwayne Johnson this is riveting. I think it's really beautiful, it's really a vulnerable performance from him, and he shows a lot of range, a lot of potential as a dramatic actor. I think it's a good stepping stone for him, a good platform, I'd say, as an actor. And again, he shows a lot of range. Again, really broken. Really broken, really vulnerable, very emotional person. But you can definitely tell he's definitely trying something new. And I did think that watching the movie, obviously half the time I was kind of like, oh yeah, that's The Rock, that's Dwayne Johnson. Like, oh my goodness. So I was for sure captivated by his performance. And Emily Blunt, who I'm a massive fan of, one of my favorite actors working today for sure. I thought she was really good in this movie. However, I do think she's a bit underutilized, I would say. I think she could have been a bit more, I guess, maybe that's a story, but I think that giving her, her talents and her as a performer, I thought she was a bit underutilized. Again, I'm a massive fan of her, so could use a bit more for her personally. And Benny Safdie, listen, I love both Josh and Benny Safdie, two of my favorite filmmakers. I love Uncut Gems and I love Good Time. So I want to see what he did as a solo director with this. And again, I would say this is probably the least anxious I felt in a Safdie brother movie probably ever. I wasn't as anxious as I was in Good Time or Uncut Gems for sure, but the scenes that we see with Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson, they're really raw. They're uncomfortable and they're harsh. But again, I think they depict how their love was on screen. I think pretty accurately from what I've heard from from her from like other reviews, interviews, whatever. But still though, and when you watch, you're kind of like, should I be watching this? This feels very kind of like hard to watch. But I was very impressed with Benny Safdie as a filmmaker too, going solo. Again, the fight scenes are really raw and it's very. Again, you feel like you're there, and they feel really brutal. Yeah, as a sports movie fan, not being an MMA fan, I appreciate how raw and honest some of the fight scenes were. However, though, I would say I think the biggest flaw of this movie, I would say, again, definitely a fan of this movie, is that it feels a bit repetitive. I think it's 2 hours, 3 minutes. You feel the runtime for sure. And I think after the first half, I'm kind of like, it feels very rinse and repeat to a point of like, oh, I thought we saw this already maybe like 20 minutes ago in the other fight. Again, the fight scenes are great, don't get me wrong, but it felt very repetitive to a point of like, I felt like watching the same thing kind of over and over again. But again, you are captivated by Dwayne's performance for sure. But I just felt like the movie could have been a bit shorter or could have been like tightened, I would say. Maybe something's kind of shaved off here and there. But that's a nice kind of love letter to who Mark Kerr was and his legacy, and of course MMA, the early ages of MMA, of course. But I do think the movie has a bit of a structure issue, and I think it could have been something's got cut out because you definitely feel the repetitiveness, I would say, maybe halfway in. But hey, got for my full review on our YouTube page and our podcast feed. As always, guys, we'll see you all at the movies.